When buying an abandoned warehouse, the millionaire was shocked to see two exhausted little girls sewing. This tale will touch your heart in ways you never imagined. Enjoy the story. The November wind cut through downtown Chicago like a blade, but Nathan Parker barely felt it. At 38, he moved through the world with the calculated precision of a man who had turned ruthlessness into an art form. His charcoal wool coat, tailored to perfection, billowed behind him as he approached the old textile warehouse that would soon become his greatest triumph. "Another ghost made profitable," he muttered, pulling out his phone to review the final purchase documents. The building had sat empty for 5 years, a monument to a dying industry. But Nathan saw opportunity where others saw decay. The iron keys felt cold in his hands as he unlocked the heavy door. Inside, dust motes danced in shafts of late-afternoon sunlight streaming through grimy windows. Nathan's footsteps echoed through the vast space as he mentally calculated square footage and profit margins. Then he heard it, a soft, rhythmic sound coming from below. Frowning, Nathan followed the sound to a door he hadn't noticed before. The basement stairs creaked under his weight as he descended into shadows. What he found stopped him cold. Two young girls sat at ancient sewing machines, their small hands moving with surprising skill across fabric. The older one, maybe 9 years old, had dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and eyes the color of storm clouds. The younger one, perhaps 6, hummed softly as she worked. "What the hell are you doing here?" Nathan's voice cut through the basement like thunder. The older girl looked up without flinching, those storm-gray eyes meeting his with startling defiance. "We're working," she said simply. "We found a way in through the back. We've been coming here for months." "Months?" Nathan stepped closer, his business mind calculating the liability, the security breach, the complications. "Where are your parents?" "Our mom is sick," the girl replied, her chin lifting slightly. "I'm Lily, and this is Sophia. We need to finish these school uniforms by Friday, or we won't get paid." Nathan stared at the pile of perfectly sewn garments beside the machine. The quality was professional, impossible for a child to achieve. Yet here was the evidence before his eyes. "My mom taught me," Lily continued, as if reading his thoughts. "She used to work here before they closed everything." Something in her voice, something in those familiar gray-green eyes sent an unexpected chill down Nathan's spine. For a moment he saw himself at 8 years old, serious beyond his years, carrying responsibilities no child should bear. But sentiment was a luxury Nathan Parker had abandoned long ago. Nathan pulled 2 crisp $50 bills from his wallet, the sound sharp in the musty basement air. "Take this and don't come back. I'm having my assistant seal whatever entrance you've been using." Lily stared at the money but didn't reach for it. "We can't just leave. We have a contract." "A contract?" Nathan almost laughed. "Your children don't have contracts." "Mrs. Henderson at Lincoln Elementary does," Lily said firmly. 20 uniforms by Friday or the school's winter program gets canceled. She's paying us $300. Sophia looked up from her machine, her small face creased with worry. "Lily, is the mean man going to make us stop?" "I'm not mean," Nathan snapped, then caught himself. He forced his voice to soften slightly. Look, this isn't safe. You shouldn't be here." 3 days later, Nathan's phone rang during a board meeting. "Mr. Parker?" His security guard's voice was apologetic. "Those kids are back, the little ones with the sewing machines." Nathan's jaw tightened. "I thought Tyler sealed that entrance." "He did, sir. They found another way in." 20 minutes later, Nathan stormed into the basement, ready to call the police if necessary. But what he found made him stop short. The girls had organized their workspace with military precision. Neat piles of finished uniforms sat beside carefully measured fabric. The quality was extraordinary. Professional seams, perfect buttonholes, attention to detail that would put most adult seamstresses to shame. You sealed our door, Lily said without looking up from her work. So we found the loading dock window. You can't keep us out. Watch me, Nathan said coldly. Lily finally stopped sewing and stood, all 4 feet of her radiating determination. You don't understand. My mom needs medicine, real medicine, not the free clinic stuff that doesn't work. If we don't finish this job, she doesn't get better. That's not my problem. Maybe not, Lily said, those storm gray eyes blazing. But this is our place too. My mom worked here for 8 years before you rich people decided it wasn't profitable anymore. The words hit Nathan like a physical blow. He studied Lily's face more carefully, the determined set of her jaw, the way she held her head when challenged, the unusual color of her eyes that seemed to shift between gray and green depending on the light. Eyes exactly like the ones that stared back at him from the mirror every morning. What's your mother's name? The question came out rougher than he intended. Elaine Foster, Lily replied, her defiance wavering slightly at his tone. Why? Nathan's world tilted. The name echoed in a corner of his memory he'd deliberately sealed shut. A time when he was focused only on climbing the corporate ladder, when people were merely stepping stones to success. The name Elaine Foster haunted Nathan for 2 sleepless nights. On Thursday afternoon, curiosity overrode his better judgment. He followed the girls at a careful distance, his black Mercedes creeping through the narrow streets of a neighborhood he'd forgotten existed. Sycamore Street was a world away from Nathan's glass tower penthouse. Small houses with postage stamp yards lined the cracked sidewalks, each one telling a story of working-class pride despite fading paint and patched roofs. The girls disappeared into a pale yellow house with white shutters that had seen better. Hers and Nathan parked across the street, studying the modest home. A small garden bloomed defiantly in the front yard, and children's chalk drawings decorated the front steps. It looked, lived in, loved. You're not very good at surveillance, are you? Nathan spun around to find an elderly woman approaching his car. She had perfectly coiffed silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her smile was friendly, but something predatory lurked beneath it. I'm Martha Wilson, she said, extending a manicured hand through his open window. I live right there. She pointed to an immaculate house with a pristine lawn. And you're wondering about the Foster girls, aren't you? I'm not sure what you mean. Martha's laugh was like wind chimes in a storm. Oh, honey, I've seen you watching. Can't say I blame you, those poor children running wild while their mother. She lowered her voice conspiratorially. Well, let's just say Elaine hasn't been the same since her husband passed. Depression, you know. Some days she doesn't even get out of bed. Nathan watched as Lily emerged from the house, carefully locking the door behind her. She walked with purpose toward the small grocery store on the corner, counting bills in her small hand. That little one thinks she's so mature, Martha continued. But children need structure, stability, a proper home environment. I've been thinking of calling social services for their own good, of course. Of course, Nathan echoed, his voice flat. The property has such potential too, Martha mused, her eyes following his gaze to the yellow house. Perfect location for expansion. I've been thinking of turning my place into a bed and breakfast, but I'd need more space. Nathan's attention snapped back to her. You want their house? Martha's smile faltered for just a moment. I want what's best for everyone involved. Those children deserve better than... She was interrupted by Lily returning from the store, a small bag clutched in her arms. The girl spotted Nathan's car immediately, her steps slowing as recognition dawned. Instead of fear, her expression showed a mixture of defiance and something that looked almost like resignation. Their eyes met across the street, storm gray to storm gray, and Nathan felt something crack inside his chest. In that moment, watching a 9-year-old girl carry groceries with the weight of the world on her shoulders, he saw himself at that age. Responsible. Alone. Determined to survive no matter the cost. The difference was, he'd had to learn to be cold to protect himself. Lily had somehow managed to stay warm. That night, Nathan stood in his sterile apartment, staring at the city lights through floor-to-ceiling windows. Lily's defiant gray eyes had unlocked a door he'd sealed shut 29 years ago. 8-year-old Nathan stirred instant mac and cheese on the stove, standing on a milk crate to reach the burner. His mother, Diana, wouldn't be home from her second job until midnight. Again. "You're such a good boy," she'd whisper when she found him asleep at the kitchen table, homework finished, dishes clean. "My little man." Nathan poured himself 3 fingers of scotch, but the amber liquid couldn't burn away the memories flooding back. Diana Parker had been beautiful once, before exhaustion carved lines around her eyes and bent her shoulders with the weight of survival. She'd worked at Henderson Textiles as a secretary, taking extra shifts whenever possible. Sometimes she'd bring Nathan to the office on weekends, where he'd sit quietly in the break room while she caught up on filing. He remembered the industrial sewing machines humming in the background, the smell of fabric and oil, workers calling out to each other in Spanish and English. One of those workers had been kind to him, a young woman with gentle hands who'd shown him how thread became clothing. What was her name? Ellen? Ellie? Nathan's hand trembled slightly as he raised the glass to his lips. Elaine. The memory crystallized with painful clarity. Diana collapsing at work on a sweltering July day. The hospital. The social worker with tired eyes explaining that Nathan would need temporary placement while his mother recovered. 2 weeks in the Hartwell group home. 2 weeks of sleeping in a room with 5 other boys, of following rules that made no sense, of being just another case number. 2 weeks of promising himself he'd never be that helpless again. Nathan had kept that promise. He'd built walls of success and ambition so high that nothing could touch him. But Diana had died of a heart attack during his sophomore year at Northwestern, working her 3rd job to help pay his tuition. "I'm doing this for you, baby," she'd said in their last phone call, "so you'll never have to struggle like I did." The irony wasn't lost on him now. He'd succeeded beyond her wildest dreams, becoming the very type of man who would have bought the textile factory where she worked and shut it down for profit. His phone buzzed with a text from his assistant. "DNA testing lab requires authorization for expedited processing. Confirm?" Nathan stared at the message. He'd submitted his own DNA sample and somehow acquired one of Lily's, a strand of hair from the sewing machine. He told himself it was just business due diligence, but his hands shook as he typed his response. Confirm. Outside his window, Chicago slept, but Nathan remained awake, haunted by the ghost of a little boy who'd once promised his dying mother that he'd never forget where he came from. He'd broken that promise years ago. But maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late to remember. For 3 weeks, Nathan found himself driving past Sycamore Street during his lunch breaks. He told himself it was market research, understanding the neighborhood before his next investment. But each time, his eyes sought the yellow house and the small figure of Lily hurrying between school, home, and errands. Martha Wilson was always watching too. Nathan noticed her peering through lace curtains, lingering by her mailbox when the girls passed and striking up conversations with other neighbors. Her movements were calculated, purposeful, like a spider spinning an invisible web. On a gray Tuesday morning, Nathan's suspicions were confirmed. He was parked 2 blocks away when he saw Martha emerge from her pristine house with a manila folder tucked under her arm. She walked directly to a government building downtown, the Department of Children and Family Services. That afternoon, Nathan intercepted her phone call to the county assessor's office. "Yes, I'm calling about the property at 247 Sycamore Street." Martha's voice was honey-sweet through his car's surveillance equipment. "I understand there may be some complications with the current residents. I'd be very interested in making an offer should the situation change." Nathan's blood turned to ice. Martha wasn't just a concerned neighbor. She was a predator circling wounded prey. The next day he confronted her directly. Martha was tending to her garden when Nathan approached, his 6-foot frame casting a long shadow across her perfect roses. "Lovely afternoon for making phone calls," he said quietly. Martha's pruning shears paused mid-cut. "I'm sorry?" "To social services. To the assessor's office. Should I go on?" Her mask slipped for just a moment, revealing calculating eyes. Then the grandmotherly smile returned. "I don't know what you're implying, but I'm simply concerned about those poor children. That house is falling apart. And their mother." She shook her head sadly. "Sometimes intervention is necessary." "Intervention," Nathan repeated. "Is that what you call trying to steal their home?" Martha straightened, dropping the pretense entirely. "That property is prime real estate being wasted on a woman who can't even care for herself, let alone 2 children. I'm offering those girls a chance at a proper life. In foster care, in structured environments where they belong." Martha's voice hardened. "And that land? It's worth 3 times what they paid for it. I could turn this entire block into something meaningful, a boutique inn that brings real value to the community." Nathan stepped closer, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "Over my dead body." Martha's laugh was brittle. "And who are you exactly? Some stranger who's been lurking around here for weeks? I've seen you watching them. Perhaps social services should know about your interest in those children." The threat hung in the air like poison. Nathan realized Martha had turned his own surveillance against him, making him look like the predator she truly was. As he walked away, Nathan heard Martha calling after him. "Those children need real family, not whatever sick fantasy you're playing out." But Nathan was no longer listening. He was already planning Martha Wilson's destruction. At 5:30 a.m., while most of Chicago slept, Lily Foster was already awake. Nathan had positioned himself across the street in the pre-dawn darkness, compelled to understand the life behind the yellow house's walls. Through the kitchen window, he watched a routine that broke his heart and filled him with awe in equal measure. Lily moved through the small kitchen with practiced efficiency, her dark hair pulled back in yesterday's ponytail. She prepared oatmeal with precision, adding a careful spoonful of brown sugar and sliced banana to make it special for Sophia. She packed 2 lunch bags, checking and double-checking the contents. At 6:15, she climbed the narrow stairs. Nathan caught glimpses of her helping Sophia dress, brushing her little sister's hair into neat pigtails, whispering encouragement that carried through the thin walls. "Remember, if anyone asks where Mommy is, you say she's resting." Lily's voice drifted across the morning air. "It's not lying, Sophie. She is resting." Nathan's throat tightened. At 9 years old, Lily had learned the art of protective truth-telling that had taken him decades to master. The girls emerged at 7:00 sharp. Lily locked the front door with a key hung around her neck, then walked Sophia to Riverside Elementary 6 blocks away. Nathan followed at a distance, noting how Lily checked both ways at every intersection, how she positioned herself between Sophia and the street, how she waited until her sister was safely inside before allowing herself to run to her own school. At 11:30, Lily appeared at Lincoln Elementary's front doors, early dismissal she'd somehow negotiated. Nathan later learned from the school secretary that Lily had special permission from Principal Hendricks, who understood the family's situation. The afternoon routine was equally regimented. Lily collected Sophia, stopped at the corner market for bread and milk, counting coins twice before purchasing, then headed home to check on their mother. Nathan had caught only glimpses of Elaine Foster through windows, a thin woman who rarely left her bedroom, moving slowly when she did emerge. The illness had clearly ravaged what had once been a vibrant person. By 2:00 p.m., both girls were at the warehouse, working with intensity that belonged in corporate boardrooms, not elementary-aged hands. Lily's skill was extraordinary, her tiny fingers manipulating fabric with the expertise of a master craftsman. She guided Sophia through simpler tasks, teaching with patience Nathan had never possessed even as an adult. "Stitch twice, check once," Lily instructed, repeating what must have been her mother's words. "The thread tells you where it wants to go. Feel it, don't force it." At 5 they delivered finished uniforms to various locations around the city, Lily carrying a worn notebook with addresses and payment schedules. Nathan watched her collect money, make change, and update her careful records, a miniature businesswoman operating with integrity that put most adults to shame. By evening, they were home again, Lily cooking dinner while Sophia colored at the kitchen table. Through the window, Nathan saw Lily carry a tray upstairs to her mother, staying for what looked like a difficult conversation before returning to clean up. At 8 p.m., after Sophia was tucked into bed, Lily finally sat down with her own homework, her small face serious in the lamplight. Nathan sat in his car until her bedroom light went out at 9:30, stunned by what he'd witnessed. This wasn't childhood, it was survival dressed up as responsibility, and Lily was carrying it all alone. The storm hit Chicago like divine wrath. Nathan was reviewing quarterly reports in his penthouse when the first lightning split the sky, but his thoughts kept drifting to the yellow house on Sycamore Street. At 9:47 p.m., his phone rang. "Mr. Parker?" The voice belonged to Davis, the security guard he'd quietly hired to monitor the Foster house. "You need to get down here. Ambulance just left with the mother. The kids are alone, and it's getting bad." Nathan was in his car before Davis finished speaking. The drive through the storm was treacherous. Tree branches littered the streets and the wind howled like something alive and angry. When Nathan reached Sycamore Street, he found chaos. Power lines were down, emergency vehicles blocked the road, and the Foster house sat dark against the storm-torn sky. He found the front door unlocked and stepped into a nightmare. Water poured through multiple ceiling leaks, pooling on the hardwood floors. In the living room, Lily knelt beside Sophia, who was burning with fever and crying softly. Both girls were soaked and shivering. "Lily?" Nathan called out. She looked up, her face streaked with tears and exhaustion. For the first time since he'd met her, Lily Foster looked like what she truly was, a frightened 9-year-old child. "They took Mom to the hospital," she whispered. "I don't know which one. Sophia's sick and the roof is leaking everywhere." Nathan knelt beside them, his expensive suit instantly soaked by the flooding floor. Sophia's fever was dangerously high. He could feel the heat radiating from her small body. "We need to get her to a doctor," he said firmly. "I don't have insurance cards," Lily began, that heartbreaking adult responsibility creeping back into her voice. "And I can't leave the house. The water will ruin everything, Mom." "Lily." Nathan's voice was gentle but commanding. "Look at me." Those storm-gray eyes, so impossibly like his own, met his gaze. "I'm going to take care of this. All of it. Do you trust me?" For a long moment, the only sounds were the storm's fury and Sophia's labored breathing. Then slowly, Lily nodded. Nathan scooped Sophia into his arms, feeling how fragile she was beneath her fever. "Grab whatever you both need for a few days," he told Lily. "We're leaving." At the emergency room, Nathan's name and insurance information opened doors that would have remained closed to a 9-year-old girl with no resources. While doctors treated Sophia's strep throat and dehydration, Nathan made calls to his lawyer, to contractors, to anyone who could help secure the Foster house against further damage. In the waiting room, Lily finally broke down. Years of holding everything together crumbled as she sobbed into Nathan's shirt, her small fists clutching the fabric like a lifeline. "I tried so hard," she whispered. "I tried to take care of everything, but I'm not big enough, I'm not strong enough." Nathan's arms tightened around her, and for the first time in decades, he felt tears on his own cheeks. "You're the strongest person I know," he said fiercely, "but you shouldn't have to be." A social worker appeared, Rebecca Harris, tired but kind. She asked careful questions about the family situation, about Nathan's relationship to the girls, about temporary care arrangements. Nathan answered honestly, knowing his life was about to change forever. By dawn, the storm had passed. Sophia was stable, medicated, and sleeping peacefully. And Nathan Parker, who had spent his adult life avoiding emotional attachments, had somehow become responsible for two little girls who needed him more than his next corporate conquest ever would. Nathan's penthouse had never been designed for children. The gleaming surfaces, sharp corners, and minimalist aesthetic that had once symbolized his success now felt cold and unwelcoming as Lily and Sophia stood uncertainly in his living room. "Where do we sleep?" Sophia asked, her voice small in the vast space. Nathan realized he'd never considered such basic questions. His guest rooms were designed for business associates, not children who needed comfort and security. "We'll figure it out," he said, then immediately called his assistant. Within hours, his spare room was transformed with twin beds, colorful bedding, and toys that arrived in expensive bags from Michigan Avenue boutiques. But material comfort couldn't bridge the emotional distance. Mrs. Patterson, the professional nanny Nathan hired, lasted exactly 3 days. "The older one won't let me help with anything," she complained to Nathan. "She insists on cooking, cleaning, managing the younger child's medications. It's highly irregular." What Mrs. Patterson couldn't understand was that relinquishing control meant death to Lily Foster. For 4 years, she'd been the adult in her family. Nathan's luxury felt like a beautiful prison to someone who'd learned that survival meant staying vigilant. On the 4th morning, Nathan found Lily in his kitchen at 5:30 a.m. making breakfast with the same precision she'd used in her own home. She'd pushed a chair against the counter to reach the stove, her small frame dwarfed by the commercial-grade appliances. "You don't have to do this," Nathan said quietly. "Yes, I do." Lily didn't look up from the eggs she was scrambling. "Sophia needs routine. She needs to know someone's taking care of things. I can take care of things." Lily's hands stilled. When she finally looked at him, her expression was older than her 9 years. "Can you? Because people always say that, but then they leave or they get sick or they..." Her voice cracked. "They die." Nathan understood then. Lily wasn't just afraid of losing control. She was terrified of trusting someone who might disappear. That afternoon, he made a decision that surprised even him. He cleared out his home office, moving his desk and files to his corporate headquarters. In their place, he installed 2 sewing machines, one professional grade for Lily, one smaller for Sophia. "You can't just stop working," he told Lily when she protested. "It's who you are, but maybe you could work here, where it's safe." For the first time since the storm, Lily smiled. The transformation was remarkable. Within a week, his sterile office had become a workshop filled with fabric, thread, and the gentle hum of sewing machines. Sophia's artwork covered one wall, bright drawings of flowers and butterflies that brought life to the space. Nathan found himself staying home more, drawn by sounds he'd never heard in his apartment before. Lily teaching Sophia to hem a simple pillowcase, both girls giggling over some private joke, the soft rhythm of their breathing as they slept. One evening, he watched from the doorway as Lily showed Sophia how to guide fabric through the machine. Her hands moved with the same gentle precision he remembered from his childhood, when his mother had tried to teach him basic mending. "Feel the thread?" Lily whispered, using the exact words Nathan had heard in his own memories. "Let it tell you where it wants to go." The realization hit him like lightning. Lily wasn't just skilled at sewing, she was carrying forward a tradition, preserving something beautiful in a world that had tried to break her family apart. And watching her teach Sophia with such patience and love, Nathan finally understood what his mother had really been trying to give him all those years ago. Not just survival skills, but the knowledge that even in the darkest times, human hands could create something beautiful. Rebecca Harris arrived at Nathan's penthouse on a gray Monday morning, her briefcase heavy with files, and her expression carefully neutral. The formal investigation had begun. "This is quite a change from Sycamore Street," she observed, taking in the floor-to-ceiling windows and marble surfaces. "How are the girls adjusting?" Nathan led her to the converted workshop, where Lily was helping Sophia with a simple embroidery project. The scene looked peaceful, domestic even, but Nathan could see the tension in Lily's shoulders. "They're adapting," he said carefully. Rebecca spent 3 hours interviewing each girl separately, then neighbors from Sycamore Street. Nathan's private investigator had already warned him about Martha Wilson's statements, a carefully crafted narrative painting Elaine as neglectful, and Nathan as a suspicious stranger with unclear motives. "Mrs. Wilson seems very concerned about the children's welfare," Rebecca noted during their private conversation. "She's provided quite detailed observations about the family's challenges." "Martha Wilson wants their house," Nathan said bluntly. "She's using these children as pawns in a real estate scheme." Rebecca's pen paused over her notepad. "That's a serious accusation, Mr. Parker. Do you have evidence?" Nathan handed her a folder. Phone records, property assessments, witness statements, from other neighbors who'd noticed Martha's increasing interest in the Foster property. "She's been planning this for months. The girl's situation is just her opportunity." Meanwhile, Nathan's own investigation had uncovered what he'd been dreading and hoping for in equal measure. The employment records from Henderson Textiles showed Elaine Foster and Nathan Parker working there simultaneously 12 years ago. Elaine had left abruptly after 3 months, around the time Nathan was promoted and transferred to the company's downtown office. The photos were damning in there. Clarity, company Christmas party, 2012. Nathan in his expensive suit, young and ambitious, standing beside a radiant young woman with dark hair and gentle eyes. Elaine Foster, looking at him with an expression that spoke of possibilities and hope. He barely remembered her. She'd been part of the scenery in his relentless climb toward success. Another face in a company full of people he'd never bothered to truly see. But she had seen him. And 9 months later, Lily had been born. The DNA results arrived on Friday, delivered by courier in a sealed envelope that felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Nathan stared at the paper for a long time, the scientific language confirming what his heart had already accepted. 99.7% probability of paternity. Lily Foster was his daughter. That evening, as the girls worked quietly on their sewing projects, Lily looked up suddenly. "You've been different this week," she said with that unsettling perception that made her seem older than her years. "Watching us more. Like you're waiting for something." Nathan set down his laptop, realizing the moment of truth had arrived sooner than he'd planned. "Lily, I need to tell you something important. About your mother and me." Sophia looked up from her fabric, sensing the gravity in his tone. Lily's hands stilled on her sewing machine, those storm gray eyes, his eyes, studying his face with frightening intensity. "We knew each other before," Nathan continued carefully. 12 years ago, when she worked at the textile company where I was starting my career. I didn't remember at first, but now you do," Lily finished quietly. "Yes." The silence stretched between them, heavy with implications. Finally, Sophia's small voice broke the tension. "Does that mean you're going to take care of us forever?" Nathan looked at both girls, one his biological daughter, one the child he was learning to love as his own, and made the only promise that mattered. "Yes," he said simply. "Forever." The private investigator's complete report arrived on Tuesday morning. 3 manila envelopes that would reshape Nathan's understanding of everything. He spread the contents across his dining table like pieces of a puzzle he'd been afraid to solve. The employment records painted a clearer picture than his fractured memories. Elaine Foster, then Elaine Martinez, had worked in Henderson Textiles' design department for 8 months. Nathan had been a junior executive in finance, ambitious and focused solely on his next promotion. But the photographs told a different story. Company picnic, July 2012. Nathan and Elaine laughing together at a volleyball game. Office holiday party, December 2012. Nathan's arm around her waist as they posed with other employees. In every image, Elaine looked at him with unmistakable affection, while Nathan's expression suggested a man completely unaware of the impact he was having. The final photo stopped him cold. Nathan and Elaine leaving the office Christmas party. Together, her hand in his, both of them looking young and hopeful and completely unprepared for what was coming. 3 weeks later, Elaine had submitted her resignation. No forwarding address. No explanation beyond personal reasons. Nathan's hands shook as he reached for his phone. The hospital where Elaine was being treated had been avoiding his calls, citing privacy concerns. But money and influence opened doors that compassion couldn't. He found her in the ICU, connected to machines that beeped with mechanical precision. 12 years had ravaged what had once been a vibrant woman, but her eyes, Lily's eyes, still held traces of the person he remembered. Nathan? Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm here," he said, pulling a chair close to her bed. "Elaine, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. About Lily. About any of this." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I tried to tell you. When I found out I was pregnant, I called your office. They said you'd been transferred, wouldn't give me your new number. I even went to your apartment building, but the doorman said you'd moved." Nathan closed his eyes, remembering that time, his rapid promotion, the company relocating him to their prestigious downtown office, his immediate move to a luxury high-rise that matched his new status. He'd been so focused on his success that he'd never looked back. "I met James 6 months later," Elaine continued, her breathing labored. "He was kind, patient. When I told him about the baby, he said it didn't matter. He loved Lily from the moment she was born, raised her as his own. Why didn't you try to find me again?" Elaine's smile was sad but peaceful. "Because you'd moved on to bigger things. And James was present. He was there for midnight feedings and first steps, and all the little moments that make a father. Biology isn't everything, Nathan." The words hit him like a physical blow. "But I had a right to know. Did you?" Elaine's gaze was steady. "Would you have wanted to know? Be honest. If I'd found you back then with your career just taking off, would you have wanted a baby with a secretary you barely remembered?" Nathan opened his mouth to protest, then closed it. The truth was devastating in its clarity. 12 years ago, he would have seen Lily as an obstacle, a complication to be managed with legal agreements and financial support but minimal emotional involvement. "James died when Sophia was 1, Elaine whispered. "Heart attack at the construction site. After that, it was just us 3 girls against the world. And we were okay. Until I got sick. The girls think Sophia's father died when she was 1. They don't know James wasn't Lily's biological father. Lily knows. She's always known. James told her when she was 7, explained that families are made of love, not just blood. But Sophia, she was too young when James died. To her, he was just daddy." Nathan absorbed this, understanding finally why Lily had seemed so suspicious of his motives, so protective of Sophia. She'd been guarding more than just her sister's physical well-being. She'd been protecting Sophia's memory of the only father she'd ever known. "What do you want me to do?" Nathan asked finally. Elaine's hand found his, surprisingly strong despite her condition. "Take care of them both. Promise me they'll stay together. Lily's been Sophia's mother as much as her sister. Don't let anyone separate them. I promise." And Nathan? Her eyes were closing, exhaustion overwhelming her fragile system. "Don't try to replace James in their memories. Add to their family. Don't rewrite it." Nathan returned to his penthouse, with Elaine's words echoing in his mind. He found the girls in their workshop, but the usual hum of productivity was absent. Lily sat motionless at her sewing machine, staring at fabric she hadn't touched. Sophia was curled in the corner with a picture book, but her eyes weren't following the words. They knew. Somehow, they knew their mother was dying. "We need to talk," Nathan said gently, settling into the chair he'd placed in their workspace weeks ago. Lily's head snapped up, those familiar gray-green eyes sharp with suspicion. "You went to see her, didn't you? The hospital called asking about insurance." "Yes." "What? Did she tell you?" Lily's voice was carefully controlled, but Nathan could hear the fear underneath. Nathan chose his words carefully, remembering Elaine's guidance about not rewriting their family history. "She told me about James, about how much he loved you. Both. About how he was your real father in every way that mattered." Sophia looked up from her book, confusion creasing her small features. "James was my daddy, but he's in heaven now." "That's right," Nathan said softly. "And he always will be your daddy. Nothing can change that." Lily's shoulders relaxed slightly, but her eyes remained wary. "Then why are you here? Why do you care what happens to us?" The question Nathan had been dreading had finally come. He looked at Lily, his daughter who'd never known him, who'd been raised by another man's love and sacrifice, and tried to find words for a truth too complex for a 9-year-old to fully understand. "Because a long time ago, before you were born, your mother and I knew each other. We worked together, and for a while we cared about each other. But I was young and selfish and focused only on my career. I left without knowing she was going to have you." Lily's eyes narrowed. "So you're my biological father?" The clinical way she said it broke Nathan's heart. "Yes, but that doesn't make me your dad. James was your dad. I'm just someone who wants to take care of you and Sophia now." "Because you feel guilty," Lily said, her voice flat. "Because I care about you both," Nathan corrected. "And because your mother asked me to promise that you'd stay together no matter what." Before Lily could respond, Nathan's phone rang. The hospital. He answered immediately, his blood turning cold as he listened to the voice on the other end. "We need to come now," he said quietly, ending the call. The drive to the hospital was silent except for Sophia's quiet sniffles. Nathan had explained as gently as possible that Mommy was very sick and wanted to say goodbye. Lily sat rigidly in the passenger seat, her hands clenched in her lap. They arrived to find Elaine barely conscious, her breathing shallow and labored. But when she saw the girls, her eyes brightened with fierce love. "My beautiful babies," she whispered, reaching out with trembling hands. Sophia climbed carefully onto the bed, nestling against her mother's side. Lily remained standing, her face a mask of controlled emotion. "I need you to be brave," Elaine told them both. "You're going to live with Nathan now, and you're going to take care of each other just like you always have." "I don't want you to go," Sophia sobbed. "I'll always be with you, sweetheart. Every time you sew something beautiful, every time you help someone who needs it, every time you're kind when it would be easier to be mean, I'll be right there." Elaine's gaze found Nathan over the girls' heads. "Promise me again," she mouthed, silently. "I promise," he whispered back. As dawn broke over Chicago, Elaine Foster slipped away peacefully, surrounded by the 3 people who would carry her legacy forward. And in that moment, Nathan understood that becoming a father had nothing to do with biology and everything to do with the promises you're willing to keep when love asks everything of you. The morning after Elaine's funeral, Nathan found himself standing in the yellow house on Sycamore Street for the first time since the storm. The repairs had been completed, roof fixed, floors restored, walls repainted. But the house felt hollow without Elaine's gentle presence. The girls moved through their childhood home like ghosts, touching familiar objects with reverent fingers. Sophia clutched a worn stuffed rabbit that had been her mother's parting gift. Lily methodically packed their belongings, her movements mechanical and precise. "We don't have to decide everything today," Nathan said quietly, watching Lily fold clothes with the same careful attention she gave her sewing. "Yes, we do," Lily replied without looking up. "If we don't take everything now, Martha Wilson will claim we abandoned it. She's been watching the house every day since Mom died." As if summoned by her name, Martha appeared at the front door. Nathan had been expecting this confrontation. "I heard about Elaine," Martha said, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "Such a tragedy. These poor children will need stability now, proper guidance." "They have it," Nathan said firmly, stepping between Martha and the girls. Martha's eyes glittered with calculation. "Do they? From a stranger who's been in their lives for what, 2 months? The state might have different ideas about what's in their best interest." "I'm their legal guardian," Nathan lied smoothly. The paperwork was still processing, but Martha didn't need to know that. "How convenient," Martha smiled coldly. "I suppose having money makes all sorts of impossible things possible, but children need more than financial resources, Mr. Parker. They need roots, community, people who've known them their whole lives." "People like you?" Nathan's voice was dangerously quiet. "I've been their neighbor for 5 years. I know their routines, their needs. When social services reviews this arrangement, and they will, I'll be sure to share my observations." Before Nathan could respond, Lily appeared at his side, carrying a small wooden box that had belonged to her mother. "Mrs. Wilson," Lily said, with startling composure, "Mom made me promise something before she died. She made me promise to never let anyone separate me and Sophia. Nathan promised the same thing. Did you ever promise my mom anything?" Martha's face flushed. "Well, that's not the point, dear. Adult decisions require adult wisdom." "Mom also told me about your phone calls," Lily continued, her voice growing stronger. "To the county assessor. About buying our house for your bed and breakfast. She knew you were waiting for us to leave." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Martha's mask of concern finally slipped completely. "This property is wasted on sentiment," she snapped. "That house could serve the entire community as part of a larger development. Your children, you don't understand economic opportunity or community growth." "We understand love," Sophia said unexpectedly, stepping out from behind Nathan. "And you don't love us. You love our house." Nathan felt a surge of fierce pride. These girls had survived loss, poverty, and manipulation, yet they could still recognize the difference between genuine care and calculated greed. That afternoon, while the girls sorted through their mother's sewing supplies, Nathan made a decision that surprised even him. He called his attorney and his real estate agent, setting in motion a plan that would protect the girls' future and honor their past. 3 hours later, he gathered Lily and Sophia in their mother's sewing room. "I want to tell you what I've decided about this house," he began. "First, I'm buying it from your mother's estate so Martha Wilson can never touch it. Second, we're going to keep it exactly as it is, for whenever you want to visit or remember. And third," he paused, watching their faces carefully. "Third, I'm going to convert the old textile warehouse where we first met into something special. A community center where mothers like yours can learn skills, earn money, and take care of their children at the same time. We'll call it the Elaine Foster Center." Lily's eyes filled with tears for the first time since her mother's death. "She would have loved that," she whispered. "The center will need teachers," Nathan continued. "People who understand both the technical skills and the heart behind the work. I was hoping you might consider helping when you're older." For the first time in weeks, Lily smiled. "I'd like that. Mom always said the best way to honor someone's memory is to help other people the way they helped you." As the sun set over Sycamore Street, Nathan sat on the front porch with both girls, watching the neighborhood come alive with evening routines. Martha Wilson's house remained dark and silent, the for sale sign in her yard evidence of her defeated retreat. "Babe, we going to be okay?" Sophia asked, leaning against Nathan's arm. Nathan looked at both girls, his daughter by blood, his daughter by choice, and felt a peace he'd never known in all his years of corporate success. "Yes," he said simply. "We're going to be more than okay. We're going to be a family." 3 months after Elaine's passing, Nathan stood in the yellow house on Sycamore Street, watching contractors put the finishing touches on what would become their weekend retreat. The house had been lovingly restored, each room a careful balance between necessary updates and precious memories. Elaine's sewing room remained exactly as she'd left it, her favorite thimble still beside the machine, her pattern books organized by project complexity. But adjacent to it, Nathan had built a modern workshop where Lily could continue developing her extraordinary skills with professional-grade equipment. "The kitchen island looks perfect," Rebecca Harris observed, reviewing her final report. The social worker had become an unexpected ally after witnessing Nathan's genuine commitment to the girls' well-being. The girls seemed to have adjusted remarkably well to their new circumstances. Through the window, they watched Lily teaching Sophia how to operate a computerized embroidery machine, both girls laughing as colorful thread created intricate patterns on fabric. The transformation in both children was remarkable. Sophia had regained the carefree joy of childhood, while Lily had learned to accept help without losing her sense of responsibility. "Nathan's been incredible," Rebecca continued, making notes in her file. "The legal adoption process for Sophia is proceeding smoothly, and establishing his paternal rights for Lily was straightforward once we had the DNA confirmation. But more importantly, he's created stability without trying to erase their history." Nathan had indeed surprised everyone, including himself. His penthouse had been child-proofed and warmed with family photos, but this house remained their true home, the place where they could remember their mother and feel connected to their roots. The transformation of the old textile warehouse had begun as well. Nathan had delegated most of his day-to-day business operations, focusing instead on the community center that would bear Elaine's name. The space would house modern sewing equipment, child-care facilities, and classrooms where single mothers could learn marketable skills while their children played safely nearby. "Mr. Parker?" A young woman appeared in the doorway, Maria Santos, one of 10 single mothers Nathan had already hired for the center's inaugural class. "Lily wanted to show you something." They found Lily in the workshop, proudly displaying a quilt square she'd been working on for weeks. The intricate design depicted a tree with deep roots and spreading branches, each leaf embroidered with symbols representing their blended family. Nathan's corporate logo transformed into something warm and personal: Elaine's sewing scissors, James's construction tools, Sophia's paintbrushes. "It's for the center," Lily explained. "Mom always said quilts tell stories. This one tells ours." Nathan knelt beside his daughter, a word that felt more natural each day, and studied her handiwork. The technical skill was impressive, but the emotional maturity it represented took his breath away. "Your mother would be so proud," he said softly. "I know," Lily smiled. "I talk to her sometimes when I'm sewing. She tells me what to do when the thread gets tangled." That afternoon, Nathan received an unexpected visitor. Martha Wilson stood on the front porch, her usual perfect appearance slightly disheveled. The sold sign on her former house across the street was reminder enough of her defeated schemes. "I wanted to apologize," Martha said stiffly. "My actions were inappropriate. I was thinking of property values, not people." Nathan studied her face, seeing genuine remorse mixed with wounded pride. "The girls might be willing to forgive you eventually," he said carefully. "But trust isn't something you can rebuild with apologies alone." "I know." Martha's voice was smaller now, less commanding. "I'm moving to Florida next week. Maybe distance will give me perspective I should have had all along. As her taxi disappeared down Sycamore Street, Nathan felt a chapter closing. The external threats to their family were ending, but the real work of building something lasting was just beginning. That evening, the three of them sat on the front porch, watching fireflies dance in the gathering dusk. Sophia was nearly asleep in Nathan's lap, while Lily worked on a simple hand-sewing project. "Do you think we'll be happy here?" Lily asked quietly. Nathan looked at the house that had sheltered so much love and loss, then at the two girls who had taught him that family wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up, keeping promises, and choosing love even when it was difficult. "I think," he said, "we already are." 6 months after becoming a family, Nathan adjusted his tie nervously as they approached the courthouse steps. The final adoption hearing for Sophia and the legal recognition of his paternity for Lily would make official what had already become true in their hearts. The courtroom was fuller than Nathan had expected. Mrs. Henderson from Lincoln Elementary sat in the front row, alongside several neighbors from Sycamore Street who had genuinely cared about the foster family. Maria Santos and 3 other mothers from the Elaine Foster Center had taken time off work to attend, their children playing quietly in the hallway under volunteer supervision. Rebecca Harris presented her final assessment with glowing recommendations. "Mr. Parker has demonstrated exceptional commitment to preserving the girls' cultural identity and family history, while providing the stability and resources they need to thrive." Judge Patricia Coleman, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and steel gray hair, listened carefully to each testimony. When Lily was called to speak, Nathan held his breath. "Your Honor," Lily began, her voice clear and confident, "Nathan isn't trying to replace the family we had. He's helping us become the family we can be." Sophia, when asked if she understood what adoption meant, smiled broadly. "It means Nathan promises to love me forever, even when I'm grumpy or forget to clean my room." The judge's stern expression softened. "And do you believe he'll keep that promise?" "He already has," Sophia said simply. "He kept his promise to Mommy." As Judge Coleman prepared to render her decision, Nathan surprised everyone by standing. "Your Honor, if I may, I'd like to present something to the court." He handed the bailiff a folder containing architectural plans and financial projections. "This is the Elaine Foster Community Center, which will officially open next month. It will provide vocational training, childcare, and support services for single mothers in underserved communities." The judge examined the documents with interest. "This is quite ambitious, Mr. Parker. These girls taught me that success isn't measured by what you accumulate, but by what you give back. The center will employ 15 single mothers full-time and provide training for 50 more annually. It's not charity, it's opportunity." Judge Coleman's approval was unanimous and enthusiastic. As the gavel fell, declaring the adoptions finalized, the courtroom erupted in applause. Nathan found himself surrounded by hugs from 2 little girls, who were now legally, officially, and forever his daughters. The celebration dinner at their favorite restaurant was intimate but joyful. Lily presented Nathan with a gift she'd been working on in secret, a necktie she'd sewn herself using fabric from 3 sources, a piece of Elaine's favorite dress, a scrap from James's work shirt that Elaine had saved, and new material in Nathan's corporate colors. "It's our family tree," Lily explained, pointing to the subtle pattern woven throughout. Past, present, and future, all connected. Nathan's eyes filled with tears as he loosened his expensive silk tie and replaced it with Lily's creation. "It's perfect," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I'll wear it to every important business meeting." "Even the scary ones with mean investors?" Sophia asked. "Especially those," Nathan laughed. "It'll remind me what's really important." As they walked home through the evening streets of Chicago, Nathan reflected on the journey that had brought them together. A year ago, He'd been a man who measured worth in quarterly profits and market dominance. Now he understood that true wealth came in the form of bedtime stories, homework help, and the privilege of watching two remarkable children grow into the people they were meant to become. "Nathan," Lily's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Thank you for keeping your promises, all of them." Nathan squeezed her hand gently. "Thank you for teaching me what promises are worth keeping." At home, as Nathan tucked Sophia into bed, she asked her nightly question, "Will you tell Mommy we had a good day?" "I will," Nathan promised, a ritual they'd developed after Elaine's death. What should I tell her? Tell her we're still a family, just a bigger one now. Later, as Nathan checked on Lily, he found her at her sewing machine working on what looked like baby clothes. "New project?" he asked. Lily smiled mysteriously. "Maria's expecting another baby. She's afraid she won't be able to keep working at the center. I thought maybe we could start a daycare program too." Nathan kissed the top of his daughter's head, marveling at her generous heart. "I think that's an excellent idea. We'll talk about it tomorrow." As he turned off the lights, Nathan realized that the scared, lonely businessman who'd discovered two girls in a basement workshop was gone forever. In his place stood a father, a guardian, and a man who'd finally learned that the most important acquisitions in life couldn't be bought. They could only be earned through love. 1 year after the adoption became official, Nathan stood on the front porch of the yellow house on Sycamore Street, watching the neighborhood come alive with morning, routines that had become beautifully familiar. The sound of children's laughter echoed from the backyard, where Sophia was teaching art classes to younger kids from the community center. The Elaine Foster Center had exceeded every expectation. What began as a dream to honor one woman's memory had blossomed into a thriving hub that employed 23 single mothers and provided services to over 100 families. The waiting list for training programs stretched 6 months, and 3 other cities had requested consultations to establish similar centers. "The morning shift is here," Lily announced, appearing at Nathan's side with 2 cups of coffee, a ritual they'd developed over the past year. At 11 years old, she moved through the world with the same purposeful grace that had first captured Nathan's attention, but now it was tempered with the joy of a child who knew she was loved unconditionally. They walked together to the community center, housed in the same warehouse where their story had begun. The transformation was remarkable. The cold industrial space had become warm and welcoming, filled with natural light from new skylights and the gentle hum of productive activity. "Good morning, Mr. Parker," called out Sarah Chen, one of the center's first graduates who now managed the childcare program. "Lily, the new embroidery class is asking for you again." Lily had become something of a legend among the center's participants. Every Saturday, she taught basic sewing skills to anyone who wanted to learn, from 5-year-olds creating simple projects to grandmothers perfecting techniques they'd forgotten. Her patience and skill had earned her the unofficial title of Little Professor, though she preferred simply being called Lily. Nathan made his way to his office, a modest space overlooking the main workshop floor where he could observe the daily miracle of transformation taking place. Women who had arrived desperate and broken were now creating beautiful things with their hands while their children played safely nearby. The business model was sustainable, the social impact measurable, and the emotional rewards immeasurable. "Daddy?" Sophia's voice came from the doorway. The word still sent a warm jolt through Nathan's heart, even after hearing it hundreds of times. "Can you help me with something?" She held up a painting she'd been working on, a portrait of their family, that would be displayed in the center's gallery. The 4 figures were painted with the bold, honest strokes of childhood artistry. Elaine in a flowing dress, surrounded by golden light. James in his work clothes, his face kind and gentle. Nathan in a business suit but with a soft expression. And all 3 girls together, Lily and Sophia flanking their parents with hands joined in an unbreakable chain. "It's missing something," Sophia said, studying her work critically. Nathan looked at the painting, then at his daughter's thoughtful face. What do you think it needs? Words, Sophia decided. Something that explains what we are. Before Nathan could suggest anything, Lily appeared beside them, having finished her morning teaching session. She studied the painting for a long moment, then picked up a thin brush and began carefully lettering at the bottom of the canvas. "Forever family," she wrote in elegant script. "Built by love, bound by choice, blessed by memory." That afternoon, they gathered in the center's main hall for the weekly community meeting. Nathan had instituted these sessions to ensure the center truly served its participants' needs, rather than imposing solutions from the outside. Today's agenda included expanding the daycare program, adding a small business development course, and planning the center's first annual scholarship program. As Nathan listened to the passionate discussions about improved working conditions, educational opportunities, and community support, he reflected on how completely his definition of success had changed. His business empire still thrived, but it now served a higher purpose, funding initiatives that created opportunity rather than simply profit. "Mr. Parker?" Maria Santos raised her hand. "I wanted to thank you publicly for something. My daughter, Elena, is starting high school next year with the highest math scores in her class. She says she wants to be an engineer like her mom learned to be here. That dream started in this room." The applause that followed wasn't for Nathan. It was for the community they'd all built together, where children could dream bigger than their circumstances and mothers could become the people they'd always been capable of being. That evening, as golden sunlight slanted through the windows of their Sycamore Street home, Nathan found his daughters in their mother's preserved sewing room. Lily was working on a complex quilting project while Sophia painted at a small easel Nathan had installed beside the window. "What are you making?" Nathan asked, settling into the comfortable chair he'd claimed as his own in this sacred space. "It's a memory quilt," Lily explained, showing him the intricate pattern she'd designed. "Each square represents someone important to our story. Look, there's a square for you finding us in the basement, one for Mom's hospital room, one for Martha Wilson moving away." "Even Martha gets a square?" Nathan asked, surprised. "Everyone gets a square," Lily said seriously. "Even the difficult people teach us something important. Martha taught us that family isn't about who's related to you. It's about who chooses to love you." Sophia looked up from her painting. "And she taught us that sometimes people do mean things because they're lonely, not because they're truly mean." Nathan marveled, not for the first time, at the wisdom these children possessed. They had taken every challenge, loss, poverty, uncertainty, and alchemized it into compassion and strength. As the sun set over their neighborhood, Nathan tucked both girls into their beds in the penthouse that had become truly comfortable only when it became truly theirs. The sterile showcase had been transformed into a home filled with art, laughter, and the beautiful chaos of family life. "Will you check on the center tomorrow?" Lily asked sleepily. "Every day," Nathan promised. "Will you tell Mom about the scholarship program?" Sophia whispered. "Every detail," Nathan assured her. Alone in his study, Nathan looked out at the Chicago skyline and thought about the man he'd been just 2 years ago, successful but empty, wealthy but poor in all the ways that truly mattered. That man had been looking for his next acquisition, his next victory over competitors who were really just other lost souls chasing the same hollow prizes. On his desk sat a framed photo from their first Christmas together, 3 faces glowing, with happiness beside a tree decorated with ornaments the girls had sewn themselves. Next to it lay the morning's mail, including a letter from a mayor in Detroit asking for help establishing a similar community center in his city. Nathan smiled, thinking of Elaine's words about the best way to honor someone's memory. The Elaine Foster model was spreading, creating ripples of hope in communities across the country. But more importantly, 3 people, who might have been broken by circumstances beyond their control, had instead chosen to heal themselves and others. Outside his window, the city hummed with the energy of 8 million people pursuing 8 million different versions of the American dream. But Nathan Parker had learned that the only dream worth chasing was the one you could share, the one that grew stronger when you gave it away. In the morning, there would be board meetings and business decisions, sewing classes and art projects, homework help and bedtime stories. There would be challenges and victories, ordinary moments and extraordinary ones. There would be family, and that, Nathan knew with absolute certainty, was worth more than everything he'd ever acquired in his previous life combined. The little girls, who had once worked alone in a cold basement, had taught a man who thought he had everything that he'd actually had nothing at all, until the day he learned to love.